Thank you, Nuno. So first of all, thank you for being here. Nuno already presented the name of our talk. It's going to be mostly about man-in-the-browser attacks. We will demo our own Trojan and discuss the damage that one can do with it. Then we'll move on to defense scenarios, and we'll present a new approach to defend against this type of threats. So for the ones that are not familiar with the man-in-the-browser attacks, we chose to quote the WASP definition. But basically, it all starts when a user's device gets infected, usually through some sort of email phishing campaign. I told you not to click that attached Excel file. And then the Trojan just quietly sits for the user to access one of the infected websites. And when it does, it's able to freely modify the HTTP requests and responses, and they are able to inject arbitrary code into the web page and to exfiltrate sensitive information. So this all happens, the Trojan accesses the network stream after decryption, but before the browser renders the web page. So, and hence the name man-in-the-browser. So it's useful for you to use SSL in your websites. You should totally do it, but it does nothing to prevent these attacks from happening. But man-in-the-browser is not new. They have been around for some time. Let's do a quick incursion into time. So the first man-in-the-browser Trojan was Zeus in 2007. And this was 10 years ago. Wow, 10 years old. Soon enough, it will not require an ID to buy liquor. Its source code was released in 2011, which actually opened the doors to many other man-in-the-browser Trojans. So below you can see a picture that illustrates what we call a webinject. You can see that it has a target URL, which in this case is intentionally redacted. And it has some sections to specify the injection and where to inject. So in this case, it's adding one field to the form, asking for the user's ATM PIN. And as you know, it doesn't matter how dumb these things are, and there are always lots of people that will fall for this. The second one I would like to highlight is Timba. It was first seen in 2012. And it's special because it was the very first one to tamper with HTTP headers. It actually only removed one header, a very specific header, the X-frame options, which allows the attacker to load the website inside iframe, for instance. And then they can pursue and do a clickjacking attack against the website. But we don't have time to cover all the man-in-the-browser Trojans, so this table summarizes or includes some of the most well-known Trojans, man-in-the-browser Trojans, and their capabilities. So from left to right, you can see that they are able to do form grabbing. They can collect data in any form. And they can do webinjects that I already mentioned. And these two are almost mandatory for any man-in-the-browser Trojan. So they probably include these two for sure. But there are other capabilities like keylogging, the ability to do data harvesting and exfiltration, remote access, or also known as RAT Trojans. And some of them, a few, are capable of spreading out like worms. And they also can use web fakes or copies of websites that the users will actually navigate, but they are accessing a different web server. And finally, the HTTP headers tampering that Timba is capable of. So here you can see the most prevalent Trojans in the first quarter of 2011, according to a study by IBM. And it's interesting because the top three is Zeus, which was the first, if you remember, and is still in the first position. And the second and third, NeverQuest and Gozi, are actual variants of Zeus. So in many ways, they haven't changed for quite a while, and they are still effective and still in the wild doing damage. Also, they keep changing their web injects, and so it becomes hard to detect when they are actually modifying the web page, because they change the scripts, they change the message, and they do it to spread out to other regions, other countries, and other verticals. Mainly the browser Trojans, they are responsible for millions in losses. They spread out through different industries, and they have infected literally millions of different devices across the globe. So, but the thing is, no one knows the real size of this problem. I mean, we don't know how many man-in-the-browser Trojan attacks go unnoticed. But to give you a couple of examples, in 2007, Gozi was able to compromise 160 devices from NASA. I guess the attacker was anxious to know if we really landed on the moon or not. And in 2010, Citadel was able to capture $500 million. But this problem is really important, and I think that we all should pay more attention to it. If you think about it, it doesn't matter if we are able to fix all the vulnerabilities in our web applications. Because even if we could do it, it doesn't matter for a man-in-the-browser attack, because they don't need vulnerabilities in order to do web injects. They can freely modify the application. Let's take a look now at some of the standards that you can use to defend web applications on the client side. Starting with CSP, Content Security Policy. So it's meant to prevent script injections into pages. So you can set a bunch of policies to specify which scripts can be loaded and from where. And you can do that with a header, a special header, or with meta tags. It has some limitations. It requires a lot of configuration and maintenance. And I'd like to emphasize one of the limitations, which is it does not apply to browser extensions. So this is major. Actually, the authors of the standard, they simply think that this is out of scope for CSP to protect against any code injection from browser extensions. Here you can see an example. So basically on the top in blue, you can see a policy which basically allows same origin scripts, but also scripts loaded from www.example.org if they match the nonce and the hash in that rule. If they don't, the scripts will be blocked, and it will be sent a notification to that endpoint that is specified. There's also a version where the blocking does not occur, just the reporting. And you can see the basic structure, it's a different header. Next, HPKP. So HPKP is intended to pin a certificate to a certain web server into the browser. So this is meant to reduce the possibility of man-in-the-middle attacks with forged certificates. It's kind of not really supported by many browsers, for instance, IE, Edge, and Safari. So it has received a lot of support in Chrome, but Chrome just announced that they are moving away from this standard because it really caused a lot of problems with websites being locked out if the certificate for some reason doesn't match the certificate in the user's browser. Here you can see an example. And again, I'd like to emphasize one thing, which is it has the capability of reporting to an endpoint if the certificate is not matched. Lastly, the HSTS, which is meant to enforce the use of SSL in your website. It protects websites against protocol downgrades and cookie hijacking. And, well, there's nothing really particular about HSTS, but it doesn't do anything against man-in-the-browser attacks. So, do you see the trend? A lot of this browser security is being done using headers. But there's a huge caveat. If you remove the headers, you will completely bypass these defenses. So this is what has been developed in the scope of the W3C. And also, if we were able to somehow prevent those headers from being stripped, no current standard is able to prevent the script injection. As I said, CSP doesn't do anything to block any script injection from browser extensions. As a side note, it's interesting to see that some of these standards, they have report back capabilities, which is interesting because security professionals, they want to know when their policies are being offended, right? So then we thought, man, this is bad. And want to make it worse? That's when we decided to do our own Trojan. And here is where I pass the token to Paulo that will demo and talk about our Trojan and following by a demo.
Okay, so let me first say that this is my first BSides. Is it on? Okay, awesome. Let me first maybe ask you how many of you access your banking, home banking, e-banking system using a browser? Okay, cool. How many of you have a different browser profile to access your e-banking and do surf Facebook or other? You have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, cool. Not bad. As a security company, and maybe as most of you, we want to break things, and our main goal was to break HTTP header-based security standards like CSP. Of course, we want to do this, but also pass unnoticed. So behave like a real Trojan. And recently we did a big effort reverse engineering some man-in-the-browser Trojans to understand how they actually work. And we thought that Zeus would be a nice starting point. We are talking about C++ code, and it is not bad. You can get it online. It's available. But then the development process, you can imagine it was change the source code, compile the source code, get the binary, which is a builder, then run the builder to get a dropper, then move the dropper to the victim's computer, infect the victim's computer, and then see if anything has changed on the victim's environment. So it was not quite easy to move forward fast to prove our point. So there's another issue. All of them, they are binary, Windows binary Trojans. So the audience is Windows only. So we thought that make it even bigger and what we can run broadly. And browser extensions, you use the browser to access web, so let's run inside the browser. And browser extensions looked really interesting. We master web technologies, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, so the development process is nice and friendly. They also run on Windows, Linux, Mac, doesn't matter. If there's a browser, we can run there, so cool. Even bigger audience. And we have also some extra points. CSP does not apply to Chrome extensions, browser extensions, sorry. What is cool but we want to defeat them anyway. And also, browser extensions, they are developed by anyone, and they are known to have all sorts of security vulnerabilities. PDF.js had cross-site scripting at the early stage, and we can get this also from Adobe extensions, so it's an interesting point. And if there's something interesting about browser extensions, and let me choose my words, they can read and change all your data on the website that you visit. This is cool. Even if you just want to know the weather, the extension will read and change all your data on all websites you visit. Browser extensions, they are developed on top of a broken permission model like mobile applications are. And this is cool because we want to install the mobile application or the browser extension, and we just say, yes, we want it, we accept it, we know it, no problems. And in fact, they can change completely how your application looks like, any application, okay? All applications, all websites. They can inject JavaScript, so they can tamper with data, change data, steal data, do whatever the attacker wants. And even they can pass a notice, what is really cool. So then, okay, let's choose which browser we want to target. And Chrome right now is the most used. The Chrome extensions documentation is really good, so easy to go. Then, of course, we had to thought about architecture. We are developing and we want to do a great job. And we started about a modular approach using implants. Implants are something interesting. You don't have to put there the feature inside the extension or the malware. You can just pull it remotely. So you can offer a nice extension and then pull the malware when it's done, it's installed. So, of course, our goals were to tamper with headers because we want to break the standards. But we also want to implement all the major features we saw on the man-in-the-browser Trojans. And so I would say that our biggest requirement would be to have a stealthy extension, in this case, Chrome extension. And by stealthy, we mean that we want users to download our extension and use it. We want to solve users a problem they have, so they will download our extension. Of course, we want to maximize our audience, so let's see what users are looking for on the store. And pass unnoticed, of course. We don't want them to notice that we are doing dangerous stuff, and also bypass antivirus and firewalls. So, searching on the Chrome store, what we get, AdBlock and ad blockers in general are the most downloaded extensions. Anyone has a ad blocker? Ooh, cool. So, AdBlock claims 40 million users, what is cool, and they will read and change all your data on the websites you visit. Cool again. So, we took from our imagination to create the AdBlock Plus extension. I would say that we can get also 40 million users, and they ask also to display the notifications, but we kept it simple and we will just read and change all your data on the websites you visit. So, every man-in-the-browser Trojan has a command and control server. This means that you have the client part, which you install, driven by download. You need ad blocker, and this is the best one. And we have the server from where implants will be taken, the malicious part, and also the configuration. So, this was not our main focus, so we kept it simple, but we made something distributed, so we have plenty of servers spread all over the world, and they can send the stolen data and pull configurations and implants from everywhere. They send the reports, and then everything gets pushed to an Elasticsearch instance because we were expecting much data, so let's keep it simple and get the right tool to get the job done. Just to give you a brief introduction to Chrome extensions, because then comes the best part. This is the life cycle they offer developers. So as we want to break headers, we have the before send headers, and we have also the on headers received. If you're familiar with JavaScript, on are events. They are triggered, allowing asynchronous programming, so the performance impact on page loads and runtime is really low, so it's cool, we will be passed unnoticed. So our first question and our starting point was, can we modify headers? If the developer tools can read them and show them, so should we? And in fact, with just a few lines of code, we did it. And as lazy as we should be, we went to developer tools and checked whether the headers were removed, but they were there unchanged. But this, and better this way, they were there unchanged, but in fact they were dropped. But because this works on a chain of responsibility, the first one to read will see the original message, then the next one will change, but it doesn't go back to the starting point, so you will see the header on the developer tools, but it is taken out. So, many in the browser Trojans, they do not change the DOM, but they tamper with markup. This means that they inject, like we saw before, the pin field on the HTML, on the wire, and then when it gets rendered on the browser, the field is already there. Chrome extensions, they do not allow it, okay? Cool. Maybe we can think that this is a security strategy, but there's a feature request to allow it, and the guys are just taking longer because they are concerned about performance. So soon we will be able also to change the response body. In fact, we were digging and we could do it. And instead of using the WebRequest API, we could have used the debugger, and we would have been able to change also the response body. But then, every time we try to do it, this would break our stealthy requirements. So we gave up about changing the response body, because we can change the DOM, and we will do it even better because no one will notice. This is how extensions work. So this is the overall architecture we have right now. Okay. So we have the client, we have our implants which get pulled from our command and control server. Then we collect stuff in here and we send to the command and control server, which then pushes it to the Elasticsearch database, and hopefully we'll make profit from it. So I'd say that everyone wants to attack, not only to defend. And what we have next is we will craft the attack live and together. Let me add just, let me show you. So we said that we would offer users a feature that they want. And this is something that we don't want to see on our pages when we are reading the news. So let's enable our extension and go to the same website and get the web page free of advertisement. Okay, so I think that we have happy customers right now. So it's time to pull implants and start playing around with users. And let's choose, I'm sorry because I'm not so familiar with macOS shortcuts, it's F. Half. Oh well. Sorry. Okay, cool. So let's choose our, okay, and this is, yes. Oh god. Okay, control, cool. let's choose our targets. Let's think a world where there's only a single e-banking solution and all of us, we are customers of virtual banking. Okay, this should look like e-banking. Nope. Oh. Okay. Doesn't matter. This is the e-banking website we will attack. Okay, cool. So what I will do next, or we will do together next. So how can I move this to half screen again? Okay, cool. Let's start from the beginning. Let's try to make our attack even bigger, and instead of focusing only on the web strategy of this bank, let's also offer the customers of virtual bank fake mobile application. Probably some of the users, they have their mobile device rooted or jailbroken, and you'll get your fake mobile application downloaded and installed. So let's use the homepage to communicate users or tell the users that there's new mobile application. Okay, so what we need is to tamper with the virtual bank homepage and show them some announcement of the new application. What is in here is just a pop-up. Let me just, okay, I'm not on the right side. Let's visit virtual bank. Again, the full screen, F. Okay, gosh. So this is now how a virtual bank user will see the website. Okay. So what looks a legit advertisement. Okay, and even you can go to what we call a web fake, a website where you can download the mobile application. Okay, there's nothing here which can trigger the user that he's being tricked. Okay, and there's something interesting here regarding this advertisement. How can I do it? Okay, pop up the debugger. As we said before, and let me show you the network. This website takes security seriously, and they use the latest standards available. So they only accept images from their own domain, okay, and data, which should be built in the markup itself. But if we have a look on where images are coming from, they are coming from a secure website called playgoggle.com. Okay, so the standard is not working, but we said before that it does not apply to the browser extensions. So let's just move this again, okay? And let's see how virtual bank works so that we can craft our own attack. So a user comes to virtual bank, then he has to sign in. This is F. Okay, I'm doing much better right now. They should log in, and maybe it would be cool to gather all virtual bank users' credentials. So let's update our configuration file. The tamper is done. Let's grab all user authentication tokens. Okay. And let's move on, then we will behave and do the rest. So let's sign in. So when user gets in his account, we land we land on a page with our details, all the details about our credit cards, accounts, balance, okay? So let's place a transaction order. Okay, it would be cool to also collect credit card data, balances, and other stuff. So to do it at a glance, let's take a screenshot from that page. All right. Okay, we are taking a screenshot from this page also. Okay. Screenshot is done also. But what about the transaction? Okay, let's pay our rent, but let's take all the money to our own account. Okay, and this just requires a few lines of code. Let's make it easy. What this means is that instead of sending to the destination account the user fills, let's send it to our own account. So a few lines of JavaScript will hijack the submit event of the form, prevent user data to reach the server, and we'll put there our own. Okay? I have here what looks like a shorter version, but is exactly the same. Let's take this configuration with us to our configuration file. Okay. But let's pay our rent and see how it works. Okay, it requires a second authentication factor. Cool, this is something standard right now. But we can see that the user will have access to the transaction details. So to do a professional job, let's do it right, and let's change also, because if we place there our destination account, the user will see that the money is being transferred to a different account. So let's do the right thing and also tamper with the details so that the user won't notice that we are just redirecting the funds. And so we should be done with the full attack. If we confirm the authentication code, this is the resume of the transaction. So we have a complete workflow for a funds transfer. What we should do now is see this in action. So what I will do next, I will show you the attacker side by side. On the right side, we will see the attacker perspective, where we will collect data. I'm not doing, okay. And I told you before that we were lazy, so we will use Kibana to get live data on our side. Let me make it live updating. Auto refresh every 5 seconds. So let me just clean the database. Where is the, okay, let's see here. Where? BSides details. Okay. And right now database is clean. So let's start on the left side where we have the victims browser. So let's visit the virtual bank where we will be shown the advertisement. Okay. Which we will close. And just in a while we get on the right side a report saying that the user, let me think, F, just to make it bigger. Right now we know that the user who visits the home page, we have also IP and other stuff here, he saw the banner, okay? Just showing the advertisement to the mobile application. So let's move, no. Okay, let's just disclose this. We don't want to go there, but let's make our authentication. Okay. And let's see what we get on the attacker's website. So again, we have a report, and you can see my ID and password. Okay, so as lazy as we were before, let's see what screenshot we got from the client side. Okay. Okay, this is not the full page, but it's the account details, so we can get everything at a glance. So let's move on with our transaction. Okay, it's again on the side, cool. I have to put this bigger. No. Ok. Quero ver a outra janela. Ok. Better this way. Done. So, a new transaction. And now it's time to see. We have the other window. Gosh. Okay, what we have now, another report saying that the form was hijacked. And what happens when the form is hijacked? Let's again pay our landlord the rent. Okay. And this is what we expect to see here. And when we confirm the transaction, we have also the destination account there. But in fact, the funds were transferred to a different account number, as we saw on our hijacked source code. So I have something else to show you, because our main goal was to defeat content security policy. So I need to show you how it looks when you have a policy enabled. So this is how we test the browser. This is the official web page standard. So if you have your content security policy enabled, as you can see here, everything is green. And let's just have a look on this test. So this image won't be loaded because it's coming from a third-party domain, which is not allowed. So let's break it and drop the policy, what may allow resources to get downloaded from anywhere or everywhere. And this should be enough to load the image from wherever you want, okay, and break all the other stuff. This means that right now we can run JavaScript from anywhere, what kind of JavaScript we want, load resources from everywhere. So if you're relying on content security policy to hide or at least feel safer due to cross-site scripting or any other security vulnerability, you're not sure that the browser is applying the content security policy, because something can drop the policy. So you should be sure that you're not cross-site scripting vulnerable or any other kind of vulnerability. And then you can also leverage this. If you want to have fun, you can maybe kick your competitors from the game. And let's make the world better again and take Google out of our google.pt, and let's use a real search engine who respects our privacy. So how can we move back to the presentation? Okay. We had also the goal to pass unnoticed. So we have a tool, we can make money. You saw the numbers of the market. But we had also the goal to pass unnoticed to all the security tools we have on the client side or also server side. So WAFs, firewalls in general, and antivirus. Most of them, they work with signatures. They know something, they take a picture, they know what to look like to identify what is going on. So taking advantage from polymorphic JavaScript, we can bypass them. And how does this work? We just write our source code, we pass them through some tool, and we get different versions doing the same but looking differently. What makes that? Even if they have a signature, then 5 seconds later, our payloads or our implants, they will look different and they will pass easily these kind of validations. So what does this all mean? That you're not safe or you're not safer, even if you're applying the latest standards, Header-based for security. So you should be sure that your applications are not vulnerable, and you have companies here which can help you finding your security vulnerabilities and fixing them. You should also, if you're offering services over the internet, if you have applications, you should care about your users, because if something happens with user data, user profiles, user money, your brand has a problem, your company has a problem. So we should think our applications not only keeping the server and the assets safe, but also all the flow should be safe. We should deliver something safe and safely. And you should think about extensions. They will become a standard. Yesterday, Mozilla was in a roadshow in ISCTE. Next November 14th, Mozilla will release its Quantum browser, and Mozilla dropped Firefox extensions, and they will implement the same API, which they are pushing to be a standard than Chrome. Okay, I had the chance to ask them about these questions, and they kind of don't know. They are implementing the same API. Probably they are not expecting the same issues, but I think that they do not thought about them. So we should think about this as a global problem. If we want to deliver rich browsers, allowing users to do whatever they want, they can compromise our applications. So we truly believe that we don't need to develop any more binary malware to offer only to Windows users, mostly to Windows users, because we can get a better budget if we deliver Trojans through browser extensions, because most of the time we are using the browser, not specifically the operating system. But we are not here only today only to show you problems. We want to make this something more interesting. So what can we do to take security a step further?
Thank you, Paulo. Thank you. So we thought, what else is there to defend against this? Taking a look to solutions that are not standards, but commercial solutions in the market, there are a few solutions that we thought about how they could potentially avoid this type of problems. Okay, let's switch to this one. Can you hear me? No? Okay. What about now? Better? I'll try to speak up. Okay, so one of the solutions is device fingerprinting and geolocation. They don't work against man-in-the-browser type of attacks because the user is using his device, and it's probably accessing the web page from his usual location. So there's nothing that you can gather from using this type of techniques. Fraud monitoring might work in some cases, But remember that many in the browser, they can be very subtle on the way that they change the page and the way they change the transactions. The example that you just saw from Paulo, they were only modifying the destination account number. So consider that it was a one-off transaction to someone. How can the bank potentially know that this isn't a good transaction, that it is a fraudulent transaction? They can't know. So there are lots of ways for fraud monitoring to fail. And then you have bot detection and behavior-based detection, which won't work either because the user is in command. They are controlling the website. They are navigating through the website. So the man in the browser is just passively waiting for the user to take the actions and to modify as few things they can and as stealthy as they can be to modify the user experience and commit the fraud. And we propose a new approach, which is called application real-time monitoring, in which basically we are continuously monitoring the web page DOM for any modification, from any non-expected modification, and for script injections that might be modifying the native APIs and hijacking events. So you just need to continuously monitor the page. We recommend the whitelisting approach because we learned from antiviruses that you cannot possibly recognize everything that is malicious now and in the future. But you have to use something like machine learning to deal with the false positives because some of the changes, they will be benign. And as soon as you detect something, you just send out notifications, real-time notifications to the backend of the application, to webhooks, to any API. And that can potentially trigger reactions from the web application backend side. So they can, if they know that something is happening, they can stop the user from logging in. They can cancel transactions. They can do a lot of things. They can call the user. And this is a very powerful effect if this is transmitted in real time. So it allows the page also to self-heal, because if we know that the DOM, for instance, is being modified, we can just revert that or try to do it. But in order for this approach to even work, it needs code protection, because otherwise the man in the browser Trojan might just tamper with the defense code like it does with the normal code from the web page. And for that, we recommend code protection that has runtime application self-protection capabilities, because it needs to be resilient against code tampering and other types of JavaScript-based attacks. Okay, now let's do a short demo of this approach. Let me just sit. Okay, so what you are seeing is the dashboard, so this is basically operated by the security team of the web application. It's not available for the end user. And in this page, I will load the virtual banking application that you just saw. Okay, so the solution is not enabled yet. So you are seeing the tampering, and I would like to show you as well a non-infected version, a profile that's clean and with no extensions, and to load the same website. So as you can see, no banner in this version. Okay, so let's just quickly enable the solution. And for that, I just need to add the scripts, which is commented out right now. Let me uncomment it and just start the script again. Okay. And now let me load the same web page again. Virtual banking. So as you could see, for a split second you saw the banner there, but it was automatically removed. And here you can see in the dashboard that we are receiving alerts, real-time notifications of the tampering that just happened in the code page. So we can see the IP of the end user, the user agent being used, the URL, and you can see in full detail what was the injection. So it's highlighted in red. And you can see details like the links for playgoggle.com. And as a researcher, you can use this type of approach to have in full detail what the tag looks like and just pursue this information and just follow it to discover the command and control and to just try to take the bots down and protect your websites. Okay. So let's continue. Enter the online bank. And I haven't even logged in yet. I'm already seeing new threats coming in. So let's see what's happening here. And I see code poisoning happening in the page. And let's see the full details of this. And what happened here was that the form, the authentication form, the onSubmit event was changed to this code. So you can actually see the code. And it's just exfiltrating the credentials to the C2. Let me log in. And here I am in the account. Let's initiate the new transaction as before. And new threats are coming in. So I haven't submitted the transaction form yet. So potentially, because of the backend already received the notification, they could actually prevent the transaction from being accepted at all. So they could return like something is off and even blacklist the user from doing fraud, from doing transactions. And while they sort this out and call the user, and we think that your device might be infected, and for that reason you cannot do transfers, and this is for your own goods to protect you from money being stolen from your account. So in this case we have a new code poisoning. The code is very easy to read in this case. In a real scenario it wouldn't be, probably. The code might be obfuscated and hard to read. So in this case, they are collecting the original name, original destination account number, and just storing this in session storage. And at the last minute, because this JavaScript only executes when you submit the form, they are just creating a new form elements with a different destination account number. And confirm the transaction. And like Paulo has shown you before, even the information that's being shown so you can see landlord, even the information that is being shown in the confirm transaction page is being tampered because the bank received a different destination account number, but you want the user to see the name and destination account number he was expecting in order for him not to suspect that something off is happening. And this is basically it. So sorry about that. So wrapping this up, we saw that modern man-in-the-browser Trojans are capable of completely compromising web applications by doing DOM tampering and hijacking events and doing API poisoning, just injecting arbitrary code into the web page. They can exfiltrate sensitive information, trick the user into doing other things like downloading fake mobile applications and compromising the user's mobile device. They can just steal money, for instance, in this website, and it was easy enough to completely defeat most application security standards like CSP and other types of standards that are based in headers. And other techniques, we saw that they cannot do nothing against this type of attacks. We also established that you can use extensions for doing this. I believe that using extensions can replace the traditional binary man-in-the-browser Trojans, and they are very easy to deploy, very easy to develop, very easy to test. And you can leverage social engineering attacks, like we developed the AdBlock Plus, and it's very easy to get thousands and thousands of users to deploy your extensions. We haven't do it because we don't want to go to jail, so don't worry. So the code, we haven't released the code and we will not, but we are open for questions, not offers, for questions. And we propose a new approach, which is basically, if we cannot stop injections from occurring, let's try to detect it and do real-time monitoring of injections. We think that the reporting, the real-time monitoring, is really aligned with some of these standards. So we saw that CSP is able to report back, HPKP as well. And this is very interesting because applications should report back to the backend, and if that happens automatically, even better, because developers are usually they are not that good at knowing what to detect and what to report. So we shouldn't rely on developers to do that. And as application security specialists, it's best that that technology is installed transparently and reports back to the backend, and then have developers leverage the notifications to do further reactions in line with the business logic. And that's it. That's all we had. So thank you, and we are open to your questions if you have.
Hi. I actually have two questions, but one of them is, the first one is dealing with your method of avoiding the issue. Just have you tried to use that technique to, in a fat web app like Gmail that has a gazillion events happening and changing the web application in real time, and what's the side effect of that web application with your solution? And the second one is, have you considered using web workers as a way to avoid the detection or the slugginess of the user's browser interface, since web workers work on the background? It's easier to hide your stuff.
I didn't understand if your first question is about the extension itself or the... No, the protection method. Okay.
The protection method.
Maybe you can go ahead.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, you are worried about the scale, right? The number of events and how it... so basically, I can translate your question to, does this scale, right?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
You have a fat web app that is constantly changing the user's interface and monitoring all the events.
Yes.
You have the same problem as jQuery had a few versions ago, where instead of delegating the events, they were monitoring.
Queuing, yep.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge. We defend that the real-time monitoring must be intelligent in order to scale. So you cannot possibly check for everything all the time. So you need to have some things getting whitelisted, and so that you won't do like follow-up processing on that. So you need to have both machine learning and some heuristics, just to see if some modification is malicious, is potentially malicious, and if it's not, you just like just don't analyze it further, and just focus on the ones that are potentially malicious. And your second question was web workers.
In fact, the web worker, our attack is hidden because when you deliver the extension, there's nothing there. And yesterday we saw a presentation about fileless attacks, and in fact we are not storing nothing on files. You are pulling the malicious code from the command and control server, so we just have to bypass what is on the network. And today the implant will start with AAA, and tomorrow it can start, or 5 seconds later it can start with BBB. It's completely different. If you whitelist or blacklist the first one, the second one will pass. So we don't have to even use web workers or what else to hide the malicious part of the extension, because it's anywhere.
It's already persistent. I mean.
Any more questions?
One over there.
Yeah. Thanks for the talk. I'm curious if you're using machine learning and especially anomaly detection for your solution.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you well.
Okay. If you're using machine learning and anomaly detection for your solution, how are you establishing the baseline?
Using a training period.
Okay, so it's for each application
Real users, but not live data.
Okay, thanks.
Nevertheless, we are using both supervised and unsupervised algorithms.
Yes.
It means that every time a human can come and tell the machine whether is it right or wrong. So even if you don't have an environment where you can do the training period, if you allow the application to run on production and you have someone supervising the machine learning, you can do exactly the same. And probably even better if you have a lot of traffic, you can do it faster.
One last question. No. Okay, so we're gonna have a coffee break now. There's prestige night downstairs, and I guess you have to run because they're running out.